We always go back in and do that same procedure. We want to make sure that our ignition timing is always matched, because if we're commanding again 10 degrees here, we want to see 10 degrees at the engine. So if we're having a mismatch, that's going to be the first place that you jump to, is go in here and change this value so that you can get the ignition timing matched from whatever you're commanding in the test advance to whatever you're shooting at the balancer, so they should match. So in this case, it would be 0 TDC. The other thing I want to warn you or give you a heads up on is, as you're cranking the engine, you're also going to have your fuel injectors pulsing. So what you may want to do is unplug the fuel injectors so that the fuel injectors don't pulse fuel into the engine and just essentially pump it with a bunch of fuel that could wash the cylinder out or create a hard starting condition because it's flooded. The next time after you went through and figured all this out and you go through and start the engine, you're not going to have any problems. So always unplug the injectors while you're doing your crank index position or just doing your cranking of your engine, because you haven't started it yet. Now once the engine starts up and runs, I would also go into your test advance here and set it to a higher value. So I would set it to something like 30 degrees. And then I would go in and make sure I have a balancer mark on my crank balancer at roughly 30 degrees. And I would shoot the timing light at it and then rev the engine up. If we locked it at 30, we should see 30 at 5,000 and 7,000 RPM. We should not see a discrepancy. So the next thing we need to know, if we jump into our table here, we're also going to be able to change the load axis here. So right now it's set on throttle position. You can see my throttle position here is at 46.5. If I simply move my throttle around, we can see that it's going to be changing to the different point in the table here. You can see the cursor moves around. So in order to change this to something maybe more useful, such as map pressure, we're going to have to go and hit escape, and we're going to be jumping down here using our down arrows into our general and then into our main setup. And we're going to be finding here is our load calc method is going to correspond to that load input to the table. So if we click F1 here, it's going to bring us into the definitions for what the number means. So the first number here is based on throttle position, and that's why that ignition timing was following our throttle position, and that's probably not going to be ideal for most all engines. You're going to want to tune that on map sensor. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it right now into my map pressure for my load input.